Ruler of Beasts, Chapter 13. Glinda. Ozma's voice was cold enough to freeze boiling water. What exactly brings you back to the Emerald City after I suggested you not return? Glinda laughed. Dearest Ozma, I'm sure you know. The lion certainly does. Ozma shot a startled look back at the lion. His heart sank. He had been stupid not to be completely honest with Ozma. Now it was too late. The Queen would realize the extent of his deceit and never forgive him. His time in the palace was clearly over. But more than that, he was sorry to lose someone who had been a real friend to him. What does Glinda mean, Lion? Ozma asked. It's nothing, the lion blurted. I have no idea. Ozma's eyes narrowed. Which one is it? Nothing or no idea? Glinda laughed again. Now, Lion, it won't do to try to break your promise you made me. We're connected now. How else do you think I knew you'd found my necklace? Ozma was looking back and forth between the two of them. What promise? Glinda found me in the kingdom of the beasts, the lion said miserably. She had made me promise to find the wizard's necklace. I had no idea she was going behind your back. Why didn't you tell me? Ozma gasped. Glinda put a spell on me, the lion said. She commanded me to keep it secret. Anyway, it didn't seem important until we actually found the necklace, but by then we defeated the Gnome King, and I guess it just slipped my mind. He finished, well aware of how feeble it sounded. Ozma's expression was a mixture of fury and disappointment. Glinda cleared her throat. My necklace, please. It's not your necklace, the lion said bravely, lashing his tail as he faced Glinda. It belongs to Oz. I've changed my mind. I won't give it to you. No matter what you get in return. He thought of the image of the girl in front of the house. Then he thought of Ozma pulling him through the wall. He wanted Dorothy back, but not at Ozma's expense. No matter what, he said firmly, feeling stronger and better as each word landed. At that, Glinda threw back her head and laughed even harder. Oh, Lion, she chuckled. Silly, silly Lion. You don't understand, do you? I'm not giving you a choice. She flicked her wrists, and bolts of pink lightning shot across the lion's chest. At the last second, Ozma made a slashing motion, and a wall of green energy sprung up behind the lion. Glinda's bolt slammed into Ozma's force field and splintered harmlessly, crackling and smoking. He realized at that moment that Glinda hadn't wanted him to protect Ozma from danger. Glinda was the danger. You've enchanted one of my subjects without my consent, barged into my palace, and now you want to steal something that isn't yours from under my nose? Ozma snarled. After all your promises to help me? We could have been friends, you know. Glinda hissed, her terrifyingly rigid smile turning to a scowl. Are you kidding me, you little ingrate? I made you queen, and this is how you repay me, by throwing me out of the Emerald Palace and accusing me of treason. The Scarecrow might have been an incompetent idiot, but at least he knew his place. He's not an idiot, the lion protested. Both Glinda and Ozma glanced at him, as if they only had just remembered he was there, before returning to stare at each other, the air between them crackling with energy. What have you done with it, Ozma? I'm not going to tell you, Ozma said coldly. The lion blinked. Glinda didn't know where the necklace actually was. She just knew one of them had it, and of course she'd assumed it was Ozma. If he could get out of the throne room unnoticed, he could hide it somewhere safe until Ozma took care of Glinda. Once the coast was clear, he'd give it back to Ozma and restore her faith in him. It was a plan worthy of the Scarecrow himself. The air around Glinda was growing pink and turquoise. She raised her hands, crackling bolts of energy forming between her fingers. Do you really want to do this, Glinda? Ozma said grimly. Battle me in my own palace? Declare war on the Queen of Oz? It's only your palace because I put you in it, Glinda snarled, hurling a bolt of energy at Ozma's head. I can take you out just as easily. Ozma flicked her fingers, and Glinda's magic crashed into the wall behind her, leaving a smoking crater. I'm giving you one last chance, Glinda, she said. Leave now, and we can forget all about this. In response, Glinda threw another bolt of magic at Ozma. Ozma dodged it neatly, rolling her eyes. Fine, she said in exasperation. You know, I really had a long day. All I want to do is go to bed, but apparently a queen's work is never done. There is no rest for the wicked, Glinda snapped. Ozma threw up another shield just in time as Glinda sent more magic at her. The lion was torn, unsure what to do or who to fight for, but feeling ready to pounce. He had never had much use for magic, but watching them fight, he wished he had some of his own. You were supposed to be the good witch, Ozma said, returning Glinda's fire. Glinda ducked and flew out of range. You were supposed to be a good investment, she snapped. You don't know the first thing about ruling a country. You should have listened to me. Since you're such an expert, Ozma flicked her fingers, and green lightning crackled toward Glinda. Glinda waved one hand, and the energy fizzed into tiny sparks. The lion took a step forward the door, and then another. Self-preservation, and kicked in, finally ruling out over his desire to know who would win the fight. He was almost clear of the throne room. I knew a lot more than you do, child, Glinda hissed. I'm not a child, Ozma yelled. I am the last of the line of Lorraine and the rightful ruler of Oz. Oh, Lorraine, Glinda simpered mockingly. Nobody even cares about that old story. Next, you're going to try and sell me on some old bogus hooey about tapping on the deep magic of Oz in order to be a better queen. Face it, honey. You like the throne, and that doesn't mean you're qualified for it. If you'd listened to me in the beginning, none of this would have happened. You'd still be in power, and I'd be right behind you. I am still in power, Ozma said, and I'm enjoying it a lot more without you breathing down my neck. She whipped a fireball at Glinda so quickly that the witch didn't have time to get out of the way. It hit her solidly on the chest, and she shrieked in rage as her dress began to blacken and burn. Glinda slapped at her chest with one hand, pink spreading outward again to replace the black and burned sections. Don't you dare ruin my dress, Glinda screamed, hurtling toward Ozma with her fingers outstretched. The lion saw his chance. He turned around and bolted for the door, and slammed into an invisible wall. Not so fast, dear lion, Glinda said from directly behind him. I think I know where my necklace is. An invisible hand gripping his tail, dragging him backward. He tried to sink his claws into the stone floor, but Glinda's magic pulled him forward the center of the room. Leave him out of this, Ozma growled. You've done enough damage to my friends. Oh, but the lion was my friend first. Isn't that true, lion? The lion looked miserably toward Ozma as Glinda reached for his neck, but Ozma's eyes were closed, and she was mumbling to herself. This was it, then. She'd lost the rest of what little strength she had left after defeating the Gnome King. Glinda was going to win, and there was no use resisting her. Would Glinda banish Ozma from the throne, or continue trying to rule through her? It's time for a new queen in town, Glinda snarled, answering his unspoken question. He felt the necklace loosening itself from around his neck and float upward as he watched it, helplessly. At least his part of the work was done. Ec podium esloium, as Ozma cried, opening her eyes wide and flinging her arms out. An explosion of green light rocked the throne room, tiles crumbling from the walls, narrowly missing the three figures that stood frozen in shock, wave from Ozma's spell. Glinda's jaw hung open, one hand still outstretched toward the wizard's ruby necklace. Vertonium Colossus! A green portal opened next to her, revealing a desolate, barren landscape on the other side. No! Glinda screamed as a huge green hand reached out from Ozma's portal and wrapped its fingers around her. You can't do this! Oh, but I can, Ozma said, her wings unfurling from her entire body outlined in a haze of green light. It's a last resort, but you're the one who's pushed me to it. Glinda kicked and struggled, but Ozma's spell dragged her slowly, extraordinarily toward the portal. At the very last second, Glinda lunged toward the air, snatching the ruby necklace where it drifted in the air. You just wait, little queen, she hissed. I'm going to use this necklace to make every special present for you a very special person. You regret the day you did this to me. Mark my words. Whatever you say, Glinda, Ozma said tiredly. The green hand heaved Glinda through the portal, and the doorway snapped shut in her furious screams. Ozma collapsed to the floor as the entire room shuddered. We have to get out of here, the lion exclaimed as more tiles crashed to the ground. Freed from the grip of Glinda's spell, he raced over to Ozma. The queen weakly dragged herself onto his back, and he bounded out of the throne room just as the rest of the ceiling fell in. Your Majesty, cried Gilia, hurrying toward them at the head of the small army of servants. Are you all right? What do you need? I need you to put me to bed, Ozma said distinctively. And then I need you to let me sleep for the next 40,000 years. She tumbled from the lion's back, unconscious, and landed on the floor with a thud.